Hubie Brown, the great basketball coach, great announcer,
Yep.
he talked about when he was coaching, and he had a mantra: never outworked and rarely outcoached. Because he was very confident in his abilities. Well, I'm not coaching, so I have to work that mantra a little bit different. But the never outworked part is stuck with me. I'm not going to be outworked.
What's up, everybody? It's LaVar Arrington here. Yes, it's another week. It's another episode. We got my man Charles Davis coming on. He's going to talk about growing up, what that was like with his mom and his dad and the influences they had on him, the game and how the influence had a game on him, his level of achievement and all the things that goes into how he works towards getting to where it is that he tries to get to every single day, the impact of the game. You name it, we talked about it. It's good in the game. It's coming up. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Bang. All right, everyone. We got another great. My man Charles Davis. Now, we can go through all the football accolades.
No.
But I got to start here. Rarely do you meet a guy as solid as Charles Davis, man. Let me tell you something. Like one of my best memories, because I've always been a fan of your work anyway. But my fondest memory is obviously I called a game. And it was my first time ever calling a game. And they said, man, do you know how to do game boards and stuff like that? I was like, no. They're like, all right, you need Charles. And you were gracious enough to hook me up with your game board so I could see how it worked and how to structure what it is that we were doing. And it gave me the ability to have the confidence of getting through calling a game. All right. So that I want to make sure I throw that out there. We're going to expand on that because this is called Good in the Game. National Football Foundation, Charles Davis, obviously from Tennessee, played for the Vols. You're a safety. Well, you end up being a safety because you went as a quarterback. You modeled yourself and you end up making it into the pros, go to the Cowboys. Had it's all right. You had NFL experience, but what was cool was you went to Tennessee, being from Tennessee, because your hero growing up was a Tennessee Volunteer. Talk to me a little bit about like what type of influence did that have on you to not only go to Tennessee, but to, how did you pattern what you did or model what you did leading up to trying to get to Tennessee?
Yeah, that's a great question, LaVar. Thank you first and foremost for having me on. It's an honor.
Absolutely.
To be here. An absolute honor because you you set the trend for so many different things out there that continues to this day.
Thank you.
Kids wanting to wear number 11, people diving over the line of scrimmage to literally make plays, not just to show up and do things, understanding how to go and do things the right way. I could go on and on. I was born in East Tennessee, Elizabethton, Tennessee, to be specific. That's where my mother's family's from. And if you go to Elizabethton, Tennessee, and ask for the Richmonds, it doesn't take long to find them. Okay,
all right,
it's there. All right, and people know them. My dad's from West Virginia. He was a college quarterback at Bluefield State in West Virginia, an HBCU.
Nice.
And when I was and we moved to New Paltz, New York. So now my parents, both Southerners, in a time of segregation, working their way into integration.
Mm-hmm.
We go to New Paltz, New York, which, wonderful place to grow up. Love the hometown, representing with the hat right here.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, my parents go from only people look like them to almost no one looks like them.
Right.
Whole different thing. The reason I set up that preamble that way is because there's my dad, black quarterback, wanting to play for West Virginia University, and there's no chance.
Wasn't getting in. Right.
It wasn't happening. He couldn't even have the chance to switch positions. He wasn't going to go to he wasn't going to school, period.
Right.
So here I am, about 8 years old. Tennessee opens up the season against UCLA in Knoxville, and Condridge Holloway runs out to play quarterback for Tennessee. Now I'm 8 years old, but all of a sudden, even at 8, I realized I was looking at something like, hold on a second. Is he playing quarterback? And I remember, I'll never forget the look on my father's face watching that game, that look of stoic pride and obviously full support and the whole deal. And boy, it was a heck of a game. Ended up being a 17-17 tie.
Wow.
He actually got hurt, comes back into the game, takes them downfield. They score. They have to go for 2 because back then, LaVar, you could play for a tie.
Oh, okay.
And they have to have 2 for the tie. And he dives into the end zone on his bad shoulder, tie ball game, 17-17. And I announced to my parents that evening that I will go to Tennessee and play quarterback.
And you did. You went to Tennessee as a quarterback.
Quarterback part.
Right.
The beauty is Condridge was playing in Canada when I was in college.
Okay.
And he's one of the great players in Canadian Football League history, being the Canadian Football League Hall of Fame. I think he was 2-time what they call the most outstanding player there, which would be our MVP. Won Grey Cups, you name it. And he had been a draft pick in baseball. He was a shortstop, an All-American shortstop in baseball. He could have picked his sport. But my point being, I never got to meet him, LaVar. I didn't meet Condridge Holloway until my career was over at Tennessee.
Wow.
Because Canadian Football League, when do they play? They start in the summer.
Right, you're working.
I didn't meet him until after my career was over, and I got to to him. I said, Mr. Holloway.
What was that like? Well, what was that like? What was that like for you?
I went up to him at an event. I said, Mr. Holloway. And of course, I was going to call him Mr. Holloway.
Sure.
My name's Charles Davis. And he just looked at me, had this little grin on his face. He goes, I know who you are, son. I know the story. How cool is that?
That's awesome. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. That was like how it was for me for my namesake, because I'm named after LaVar Burton.
Oh, wow. No way.
Yeah. So when I met him, and he knew who I was when I met him, it's a humble feeling when you meet somebody who means so much to you, when you knew them long before they even had the.
Were you college or were you pros?
I was in the pros. I was old. In fact, I might have been retired too when I met him. I might have been retired because I was doing programming to reading. It was a campaign for reading, and it brought us together. We were with the mayor and the different people, head of education in DC, as the nation's capital, and they said he was going to be there. Did I want to participate? I said, do I want to participate? I mean, first of all, I love the kids, and I love, obviously, the idea of making sure that education, which we're going to touch on that, because that's probably the biggest component of this conversation, really. This will probably be the only kind of real direct football dialogue we may have the rest of the way. And really, this isn't even football. But anyway, went down there to see the kids, and just knowing he was going to be there. And when I saw him, I was just like, there's only been a couple times I've been awestruck by meeting someone, and I was awestruck by him, and I was overcome with a lot of like feelings, because my parents explained to me watching Roots, and Kunta Kinte is LaVar Burton, so it's like I'm holding you up to the only being greater than yourself. I know the whole Alex Haley deal, and I watched him as an actor. I even watched Star Trek, right? We grew up on Reed Rainbow, but I tell you what, he was so cool to me. And it really made it real, Charles, in terms of who I chose to be as a person.
Yes.
And so I want to transition from, you had a career, you played ball, you made it to the league, but then you go into transition mode, and you went hard in the transition mode. Like, you did a whole lot of things. You showed diversity, you showed range, and you showed the willingness. I mean, you did radio, you called golf, you called different sports. How was that transitioning from being a player, chasing the dreams of being a ball player, making it to the league, then having to transition into football is gone, and now it's life after football, which we all have to do it. We all have an expiration date. We all have to do it. My son has a cool little deal he created called the washed athlete. We're all washed athletes at some point, right? What was your motivation to be so great and become so great at what it is you did post career playing ball? What took you down the lane of doing, media and being, because you've
Yeah.
inspired so many of us. What took you that direction?
LaVar, first and foremost, I mean, your story of meeting your namesake, the person you were
Yeah.
named for, and his career, it literally sent chills through me because we're often told you never want to meet your heroes because you might get disappointed.
Yes.
The idea that there was no disappointment, that was the first thing. Okay. Alex Haley writing Roots. And of course, that was our big introduction to LaVar Burton, who then showed his diversity range, did so many different things. But
That's
to
right.
close the loop on that very quickly, when I was at Tennessee, Alex Haley was a visiting professor. He actually taught a
Wow.
class at Tennessee,
Wow.
and yours truly took Alex Haley's class. So
Wow. So you got to know him.
we were connected. You talk about you and me in a
Right.
sense. Before we were ever
Wow. Before
connected,
we even right.
this is what the universe does, right?
That's
But to your
amazing.
point, here I am. I played at Tennessee. I don't get drafted, and back then the draft was 12 rounds, so I really didn't get drafted. I get a tryout with the Cowboys. I get cut 2 days before the preseason opener, so I never even got to play in the preseason. So I don't make it. I go off. I go back to grad school. The whole thing. Now on the surface, it looks like the same story anyone else has, right? Okay,
Mhm.
some guys make it, some guys don't. All right, I don't make it. But here's the deal. To your point about what motivation, drive, LaVar, when I didn't get picked, it really, really hurt me. Like it really stung me. The idea that I'm not selected, a 4-year starter in the SEC, on some decent football teams, decent to great football teams. I was a decent football player, but I'm looking at guys who got drafted. I was like, I know I was better than him. I know I
Mhm.
was better than him. Why didn't I get drafted? And you and I both know the draft sometimes
They don't get
things
it. Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So for different reasons, they decided I wasn't good enough. This is what I tell people is my motivation is now I get a chance to go to Dallas and I go. Did I train for it? Yes. Was I motivated? Eh. Here's the problem. I actually listened to the people who didn't select me, meaning when I didn't get picked, I actually believed the people who didn't pick me. All right.
Mhm.
They didn't say anything. It's just I didn't get picked. In my mind, oh, I must not be good enough.
Mhm.
So when it was time to go do it, I did not have that single minded focus that you need because we have plenty of people who never got picked who are wearing gold jackets.
Yeah.
Plenty of people
Indeed.
who never got picked who make teams and contribute and play in a big way and have good long careers. It's there, it's available if you go get it. Okay. But I went into it feeling like, well, I must not be good enough. So I was in shape, but did I have the single minded focus needed to go get what I wanted? The answer was no when I really reflect, when I
Hmm.
really am honest with myself. And that's how this transitioned me and where my drive comes from, LaVar,
I
because
love it.
ever since then, I've said to myself, I will never make that mistake again. I have to own my own mistake. Now, I don't know if I would have made it. I'm not sitting here saying, well, if I'd been single minded, I would have been this. I'm not saying
Mhm.
that. What I am saying is, I didn't give myself a chance to find out.
The fairest chance, the fairest opportunity
That's
to
on
find out.
me.
Yeah.
I will never
Man.
make that mistake again. Hubie Brown, the great basketball coach, great announcer,
Yep.
he talked about when he was coaching and he had a mantra never outworked and rarely outcoached.
Mm.
That because he was very
Mhm.
confident in his abilities. Well, I'm not coaching, so I have to work that mantra a little bit different. But the never outworked part is stuck with me. I'm not going to be outworked. Will other people work as
Mhm.
hard as me? Absolutely. I'm not sitting here thinking I'm the only guy who works hard, but I'm not going to
Mhm.
be outworked.
True.
Okay. That is never going to happen to me again because I did it to myself. And every year at the draft, that is my thing. At the end of the thing, hey guys, you didn't get drafted. Do not make the mistake I make because I'm
Mhm.
telling you, LaVar, before they pull down the lid on my coffin at my funeral, the last conscious thought I will have is You didn't work hard enough to give yourself your best chance. And I will never make that mistake again. And I try and preach it to everyone. I try and, promote it with my kids. Anyone who comes up and wants to do something with me, no, that's not a mistake I will make a second time.
Right. So let's talk about that. Not making that mistake, you see it shine through in your body of work. So you have called some pretty major games. And just knowing that you've been able to climb to those heights. I'm not a big race guy. Like I don't do victimhood. I don't get caught up into politics too much. I just, like you said, I'm a work. I'm a
You're working.
work.
You're a worker.
And I want the merits of how hard I work to really resonate and create, be a part of the creating of opportunities. To see you climb so high
Mhm.
and have those opportunities to call games so big, like you call it the legendary Boise State game, like they beat Oklahoma. What I mean, but you called like a Super Bowl, didn't you? Something to
Well,
that effect.
well, I'm fortunate enough to have called 11 Super Bowls for NFL Films International. So
Okay.
I've been fortunate enough to be part of broadcast teams that
There it
have done.
is. I knew it was something connected to the Super Bowl.
You're good.
I mean, it's not often that you know somebody that looks like me is put in that position, is elevated to that position. I'm a fan of all the guys out here. I'm a fan of all the former players, so I don't put too much on it. But I still say, you know what? Like you said, when you saw Brooks, and it gave you that motivation that you could do it.
Yeah.
That's how I felt, coming into broadcasting and coming into the media world, is that when I see guys like you, I can do it. I have a chance to do it because I see somebody that makes it real for me, that that's something that I could potentially achieve, and still working towards those types of opportunities. When you look at where you are, and that mantra that you live by, and what has kept you motivated for all these years. I mean, it's been 20 plus years now. What do you attribute that to? And not only what do you attribute that to, but how does that make you feel? Like you're a pioneer in a lot of
Mhm.
ways to what we do in this business. And I love that we were going to have this interview, because I wanted to make sure I put it out there in that manner and in that light, that Charles Davis is not only great at what he does, but he's a pioneer for what it is that we aspire to do as former athletes. For you to do it as well as you've done it, how does that make you feel? You're a legend, and you're an example to all of us. How do you handle that? Like, where's that even come from? Is that a background thing? Like, did you develop it over time? Where did it come from for you?
LaVar, we could get into, you coming into that career, coming off of being multi All American, multi All Pro, multi everything, and humbled yourself to enter a broadcasting world where many with your accomplishments come in and just like, put me at the top. I'm going to do this thing, and don't put the work in. You put the work in on the front end. You told the story about us getting together as you prepared for your game. You literally prepared. We had
Mhm.
conversations, but not because of me. And I'm pretty sure I wasn't the only one you talked to.
No,
You
you
sure.
were the only one. You are the only one I talked to, and I used your notes.
but
So
but but
yes,
but you went into it with the idea of I don't know everything. I'm ready to
I
learn.
don't know what I don't know, and I want to know from those who know it. And I respect your work so much that I was like, can I get a hold of him? Like, can I figure out what he does to prepare? Because I wanted to come across like you do when calling a game. So
Now,
yeah, you were the only person I spoke with.
I appreciate it very much. And
Yeah.
LaVar, we go through this, and I like what you said in the beginning about, listen, we're aware of who we are, and we are
Hmm.
proud of who we are, but we
Hmm.
stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. There's no
Indeed.
buts about it. So you and I, as little people, You turn on TV and there's Irv Cross on the NFL Today, right?
Mhm.
So you turn on the TV and I see Bryant Gumbel's rise in the business.
Mhm.
I see his brother Greg, who remains the only black man as a play-by-play person to call Super Bowls.
Mhm.
He called 2 of them, I believe. I'm watching in the business, in the industry, and seeing who's out there doing things. Lynn Swan is the sideline reporter for national championship games in college football.
Mhm.
You know, Spencer Tillman going in the booth and being as articulate. And I'm looking
Mhm.
up words in the dictionary and my thesaurus because this brother can put it
He can
out there
run them. Yes,
right
he
every
can.
time.
Yes, he can.
Okay. Because remember, he was, this dude was Stanford back to
Oh,
Oklahoma,
he
All
was the man.
American,
Yes.
academic All American, and watching him to this day set an
Mhm.
example. I could go on and on with the different people, but they showed me how to do things. Plus, in my working world, I was in that position before. In golf, I believe I was the first
Mhm.
black tournament director in PGA Tour history. You know,
Wow.
run a golf tournament. Then college football. I'm not sure anyone else has called national championship games. It looks like
Right.
us. The
Right.
analyst, Lynn was on the sidelines calling them.
That's
So you try
awesome.
to do these things, but not necessarily, as you point out, because you're trying to. Hey, I'm the first to do this. I'm the first. I'm the
Yeah.
black person. No, it's because you've worked hard and you've gotten opportunities
That's
and
right.
you thought, hey, here's your chance, seize it or
Mhm.
not. It's up to
Correct.
you to go do it. So I thank all those around me, before me. They set the template high and gave me an opportunity to see things. And I'm not naming all of them because there's no way
Mhm.
to possibly do that, but just some
Mhm.
people along the way that I got to see. But you asked me where it all came from. It's very simple. My father was a high school teacher and coach. And he did not ever say to me, son, this is how you have to prepare. This is how you have to work. I just watched it every day of my life growing up because my dad would teach, my dad would coach, and then my dad was preparing for other things. He would get into other outside, what we call now side hustles, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I watched him prepare to go into insurance and taxes. And my father was very meticulous. If he had 7 or 8 classes that day, he had a lesson plan for all 7 or 8 classes. I'd watch him prepare his lesson plan each night. Then he would prepare his practice plan for the basketball team. I played high school basketball for my dad. He coached high school and college basketball. I'd see the practice plan get prepared. And then he would dive into the work he had to do to pass his exams for the insurance and the taxes
Wow.
and all the
Right.
other. And he never said a word like, hey, look at me. Look how hard I'm working. This is what I'm
Right.
doing. Never said it. I just watched it. I
Yeah.
saw it for all
Right.
those years. That's where it
Yeah.
came from, LaVar.
I hear you.
Was it other people? Sure. I could name other
Right.
people who showed me different things. But when I realized every day I watched that growing up, there was the lesson. And I realize every day when I go about my business and doing my work. Look, before I'll go simply quickly here. Before each game every week, usually about Wednesday, I'll get a call from my dad. And he'll ask me how things are going. Who you got again? Okay, blah, blah. You studying? Yes, sir. Okay, you should probably study some more because if you're not prepared, if you're not ready, you'll be the first one they replace.
Mm.
That's a weekly phone call. Well, what's in those words is a man who came through his life. Remember, I said
Mhm. Oh,
segregation,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
HBCU.
Mhm.
Now integration hits, and when integration hits, he's not hired at the local high school in Tennessee, so we have to move to find a job in New York. You get where I'm coming from.
Oh, I do. I do.
Never once
I
did
do.
I ever hear him say, "Boy, they just, the man's going to keep me down."
Right. Right. You just
Never
gotta be good.
just found another way, another avenue. And again,
That's
didn't
right.
stand on the mountaintop and say, "Look at me, look how hard I'm working."
Right.
He just did it. Because people ask all the time, I'm sure you get the same thing. Hey, how long does it take you to prepare to do X, Y, and Z? And I bet
Yes.
you your answer is pretty similar to mine. Um, Whatever amount of time it takes to get
As
prepared.
long as it takes. As long as it takes is what
That's
I
what it
say.
is. And that was
Yeah.
my dad all those years. Whatever
Yeah.
it took. It could be 2 in the
Yeah.
morning, it could be 11 at night, it could be whatever. But when the
And
job
that's
was
with anything. That's with anything. So let's talk about that. This National Football Foundation podcast, Good in the Game.
yes.
I just traveled from the East Coast back to the West Coast last evening. I get in to my home at 11 p.m. Pacific time, and I have a 3 a.m. radio show that I do, and I
Yep.
do it 5 days a week. And I went in the studio this morning, and we're doing our interview. What's good in the game and how it represented good in the game for me is what you just said, that work ethic, that motivation, that inspiration. It almost it fuels me to be able to say that I be putting in my time. Like,
Yeah.
don't call me an overnight success. Whatever it is that comes my way, don't come at me with no, oh, it just comes easy for him. Like, I might make it look easy and I might not. I don't know.
You
But
do.
I'll come in on a red-eye flight from coming to do an appearance from somewhere else and get an hour of sleep and get over there and prep even more what I need to prep coming into the show. And I do it. I knock it down. I learned that discipline from playing ball. My
Yes.
discipline to always staying true to the mission and to the task. I'm a military kid and
Ah,
my mother's a school teacher. So I come
okay.
from a school teacher as well.
You get it.
And our regiment, right? Our regimented days led me to have, because a lot of times if you can't figure out how to do it playing the game at that orange tee or at some of these other schools, that's really what separates a lot of guys from the rest, is that there was some really talented guys. They couldn't stay consistent to it. They couldn't stay motivated or inspired by it. But the ones who really embrace what this game represents and what it brings to the table, you see them flourish, you see them rise, and you see them have longevity. And it's not just in the sport, they have longevity in life, they have success in what they do in life. How
Yes.
has the game helped mold you? Like, what in your mind, like, how does, when you hear the word football, what does
Mhm.
that make you feel in terms of what you've been able to accomplish?
LaVar, it's such a great question because it encapsulates, I think, who we are. Because the game itself, we wanted to play the game because we had fun doing it. Then we had a taste of success doing it. Then we wanted more of all of that. But we
Mhm.
didn't know exactly how to do everything. So that meant there were people in our lives that we started to encounter that saw our talents and wanted to help us make it better. So that could have been a Pop Warner coach. That could have been a middle school coach. That could have been high school, college, pros. It could have been teachers, because I had plenty of teachers that motivated me in that way.
Mhm.
I came from one of those towns that, everyone knew everyone, but they weren't hesitant to take you aside if they thought you weren't doing it quite right,
Mhm.
try and get you on the right path. And by the way, would call your parents to tell them, hey, by the way, I saw Charles and I didn't think that maybe, so I just wanted to let you know. And instead of my
Mhm.
parents going, don't you, I'll raise my child.
Right.
No, like, thank you. Appreciate
Yep.
that. Make sure
Mhm.
we reinforce it here on this end. Like, I got
Mhm.
in trouble one time in school. My dad, my dad, was on me, of course. And I said, don't you want to hear my side? And he said, when one of my colleagues calls me and tells me you did something wrong, you don't have a side.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Hey, Charles, I got paddled. I got paddled, and this how old I am, right? Grade school, Dr. Barber, Dr. Barber, who was our principal, called in my mom and my dad, and they took turns paddling me.
But one
I
got
got
tired,
paddled.
the other tagged in.
Come on, get you some. I got paddled. And you know what? And I deserved it. I
Deserved it.
deserved that paddling. The things I did, I could have been going down the wrong direction, but it
Yep.
was that
Let 'em.
guidance. It was that guidance. And listen, that's a little old school. Yeah, people get a little nervous when you hear that corporal punishment type stuff. They get a little nervous, but
Take
I
everything, everyone. I tell people all the time, you have to put everything in the context of the time. All right. In that
indeed.
time frame, you weren't the only one getting paddled.
Yeah.
Okay. And as we talked about, these people who came into our lives, sometimes they saw things in us we didn't know was there.
And had to work to get it out you.
Right. They're going to get us to
Indeed.
places. I didn't want to be in the high school choir, but Mrs.
Right.
Byfema Bagley, who was a true force of nature and ran the choir program at New Paltz High School, she came and told me and said, listen, you're going to be in my choir because I need you to balance out. I need tall people in the back, the whole thing. She said, now I heard you sing. She said, you can't sing a lick.
That ain't that good.
She goes, so here's the deal. You're going to
Right.
learn all the music. You're going to learn all the notes. You're going to lip sync, but you're not going to say a word. You're not going to sing. She said, because if you do, I'm going to fail you. And I said, but Mrs. Bagley, I don't want to be in the choir. She said, I didn't ask you if you wanted to be. You're going to be. Right. And she said, by the way, I know the next thing you're going to say is, well, I got to go see my dad. She goes, no, I've already told your father you're going to be in the choir. So this is done.
You're good. You're good.
Okay. But learn everything, do everything, the whole deal, the full discipline thing.
Yes.
This woman, now, I couldn't sing, but you know something? Being around people who could and had different interests outside of football was good for me.
It played its role.
She knew, like her daughter, incredibly talented. She was the valedictorian of our class, Margaret, who could do everything, could sing like an angel, could conjugate every verb coming. She was number one in our class. She was the smartest thing going. Being around people like her and the other people now, it's a different thing that's going on. That's what I think we're talking about. Because
Absolutely.
all that went into our ball, yes. But it went into our lives. It went into who was trying to get us to different places. Mr. Masson recognizing that I had a talent for telling a story and writing and encouraging me to do a journal my sophomore year in high school that I would turn weekly to him, that he could take a look at and help shape and do things of that nature so I could get to where I am. I could go on and on. I was so blessed with the education, with the people who cared about me, because we always talk about coaches. Coaches can coach you as hard as they want to coach you if you know they care about you. That's what I had, and I was lucky that these people cared. I knew they cared about me. And to this day, Coach Doug Matthews at Tennessee, my special teams coach, later our defensive coordinator at Tennessee. I was out of school at that point. I do a radio show for him each and every week. Well, you were doing your show. He does a radio show in Nashville. He called me, this is 15, 20 years ago. He's like, Davis, I'm starting this radio show, and you're going to do a segment for me. He didn't ask.
Right.
He said, you're going to do a segment
for me.
Go
do it. Yeah.
And by the way, it's just getting started, so I'm not paying you, but you're going to be on every week. I'll call you and tell you what time. And you and I both, whoever that Doug Matthews was in your life, when they called you and told you that, you said the same thing I said. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh, I did radio for free. First year. And it was a gospel station. I did a gospel station. They were singing, hey, praise the Lord. Praise hour is over, right?
I was lip syncing it.
Hey, praise hour was over. And then now here you got 1 hour of sports with LaVar. As soon as I finished, a reverend came on with the time he bought and was preaching his sermon. So I had my first sports show in between gospel songs and a sermon for free. But you know what? They said I could crack that mic.
Those are called reps. That's holding and working for your future. The only thing that would make that story better is if somehow you told me the reverend that came on after was Reverend Ike. Because we grew up with Reverend Ike.
I don't think it was Reverend Ike. I don't think it was Reverend Ike.
Because that was the character Richard Pryor emulated.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the car wash.
Daddy Rich, Reverend Ike, before him, Reverend Billy Sunday. All those reverends would come on.
You taking us back.
Everybody take their 15 cents and put in an envelope and mail it to them. But anyway, I'm getting off track. Go ahead.
No, you good. You good. This is the camaraderie. It's the brotherhood that I wanted to bring to the show, that the National Football Foundation has wanted to bring to the light, is just understanding what our camaraderie is. Like, what's good in the game is what we represent, and having the ability to show people our interaction, and people see us in a professional capacity so often, and they don't always get an opportunity to see us interact with one another on that, even level, in the locker room level, and the when we see each other level, and so to have the opportunity to kind of lead the way on that is quite an honor. I talked to Archie Griffin
Yeah,
for the first episode, and
I
so
know. That was great.
having
By the way,
oh
excellent, by the way. And Archie
man,
Griffin's one of those people, when we're standing on the shoulders of it,
pioneer, pioneer,
absolute pioneer, playing
yeah,
tailback, first man, is still the only man to win the Heisman back-to-back years, win
that's
it
right.
twice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Special man. I mean, this show has been all about talking to special men that have played our sport and have been a part of our sport. Let's end it off with this. What would your advice be when you're talking about how the game has played a part in your life to young aspiring guys
Yep,
that will see this video and they have hopes and they have dreams and they're aspiring to be the things that they want to be, and a lot of times when they see stuff like our stuff, it's specific to football.
yep.
What would your advice be to those people that see this video and know the things that you've accomplished and know what you represent, and that connection to the game to where you are now?
LaVar, I think is pretty simple. It doesn't matter what is out there that you want to achieve and in what field you is your chosen field, where your passion lies. The same things work no matter what. And we come from the football background, so the perseverance, the study, the understanding, the dedication, the fighting through things, to have your back against the wall and continue to fight and punch, to do well and then maybe someone supersedes you, or maybe you take a setback and you got to decide whether you're going to get off the ground and keep punching or you're going to just go ahead and lay there. All the things we went through, all the things that we've done because we went through it with other people. And you
Mhm.
mentioned earlier in this thing, there were other people that may have been better than us, that may have been
Absolutely.
greater, that
Mhm.
didn't make it for various reasons because they didn't have what it took to do the fight each and every day, to
Mhm.
continue to get up and go, all of those things. And I hope everybody who's listening to us is not listening to us say, wow, look at us. We did all the, we're not talking about that. What we're
Mhm.
talking about is the road may not be paved along the way. There are going
Mhm.
to be potholes, bumps, they're going to be switchbacks, they're going to be jags off of it.
That's
Are
right.
you are you going to persevere in pursuit of what you really want? How long does it take to get the job done? I don't know.
As long as it's gonna take
I'm gonna do it until the job is done.
till it's
And by the
done.
way, done well.
Done well, done
Has to be done
correctly,
well. And
done
here's the
right.
thing: our profession, you coming off red eye, you prepping, you doing all that, it's no accident that you're able to do it and maintain and sustain. But at the same time, Jack Nicholson in the movie Hoffa had the great expression all the time. That's a problem? Yeah, tell that to the working man.
Right.
Okay, now it's men and women. Tell that to the working person should be the
Person.
expression of
Absolutely.
2020 because
Absolutely.
everybody's doing it. Because let's face it, LaVar, we're in the candy store doing what we get to
Mhm.
do. We get to talk
Indeed.
about the things that we love and look at us. We're sitting in comfortable surroundings in a great
Yep.
environment, and we get to do that. You and
Indeed.
I both know people in our lives,
The trenches.
okay, what they're going through every day to try and make it work. That they
Indeed.
wake up and before their feet hit the ground, they're thinking this day is going to be a hard day.
Mhm.
One of my
Mm.
great partners in broadcasting, Gus Johnson, the great Gus Johnson, he'd look at me every now and then, and we were talking about working and prepping and all that. And he'd look at me and go, yo, man. He goes, we're not breaking rocks, man.
Right.
Like the Flintstones working at the quarry,
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Know
Oh,
people
yeah.
who work like that. But whatever your passion is, whatever you're pursuing, whatever you're chasing, find out what it takes to get there, chart your path, find the people who can give you the benefits of their wisdom, but don't expect them to just place you in things. They're going to give you the benefits of what they've done and how they've gotten there. You have to find how it works for you, how it shapes for you, and use it that way. Like you and I talked about the boards. You remember what I told you? This is how I do it,
Right.
but you may find a different system that
A
works
different
better for
flow.
you.
And
You
I did have my variations. I did.
you
But
do that
the
because you have to do
structure,
it. You have to do it in your manner.
yeah.
Otherwise, you're just a carbon copy.
But you
That
gave
doesn't
me the
work.
structure.
You
That
need a LaVar
structure is what I
Arrington
needed.
way of doing it. It has to be
I
the
hear
LaVar
you.
Arrington way for it to be done right. But
Yeah.
there's a background, there's a base. Use those things and then take it and
A
make it into
trusted background and base.
yeah, but take it
I
and make it
trusted it.
yours. And I've done that
Indeed.
with so many people in so
Yeah.
many ways. I listen to them, I talk to them. Just this summer, I talked to a couple of people about how my question was, how did you achieve greatness?
Mm-hmm.
One of them was in business. Another one is an expert in the environmental world. How did you do it? Neither one of them in sports.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know what they did, what path they took. And I took the notes from it and I carried it around with me and I referred to their notes from this. Had nothing to do with sports, but it had to do with work ethic, being smart about what you're doing, thirst
Mm-hmm.
for knowledge, all those
Mm-hmm.
things. These people
Love it.
shared their time with me.
That's ultimately, like you said, humble yourself to learn the things you don't know, open yourself up to be vulnerable to other people that have been where you're trying to go. And that's a great message. Work ethic, the mindset, the belief, because you got to believe you could be what it is you're going to be. You
Yeah.
got to believe it. And so for me, like just listening to what you're saying, man, super. You got me overly inspired all over again right now. I'm not gonna
You're
hold you anymore, but I tell you what, I love the fact that I was able to do this interview with you because I think you're one of our mega stars in our community. You represent us so well, and just having the opportunity to give people an opportunity to hear you, that's golden. That's real valuable. This will be a real valuable episode that we knock down. So I appreciate you coming on, making the time to come on and drop some knowledge on all of us and tell us a little bit open, pull the curtain back a little bit on your life as it applies to, the professional aspect of it and how you were brought up with your family. It's an amazing deal. So we appreciate you coming on, Charles.
No, thank you very
Yeah.
much. And as I
Yeah.
told you in the beginning, an honor to be on with you, to watch you
Yeah.
have the success you've had. And then as you wanted to achieve other successes, did not rely on the past success to say, well, I should be successful at this right away. Make me great. Hey, put me right in this. As you mentioned, you're doing stuff for free and learning your craft and learning how to do it. To me, that's the thing people always have to have. I don't care where you had your success before. If you're into a different world, don't expect it to just be right away. You're that
That's
person.
right.
How do I get there? LaVar
That's right.
Arrington is a great example of how that should be done,
Thank you.
and do it right. It's right there in front of you. It's
Right here
absolutely
for
like
you.
that. So I got it from my dad watching him every day. Also got it from my mom, who used to tell me all the time, son, if you get in trouble, I'm not one of those mothers that says, wait till your father gets home. You better,
Right. We're gonna
you better
handle it.
wait till your father gets home to pull me off of you.
Indeed.
So
Indeed.
I had that
Yeah.
discipline just as you had, who from people who loved me and cared and wanted to
Yes.
make sure I did it the right way. I think we had similar parents.
You the man, bro. Everybody, that's Charles Davis. Make sure you check him out. If you're watching NFL games, you can catch him on CBS. And I mean, he calls a well of a game. You also make appearances on NFL Network as well. And so you can catch him in his commentary on there. Also, he is a man of true knowledge and a true gentleman on top of all of that, man. Appreciate you coming on. This is Good in the Game. That is Charles Davis. Make sure you check out National Football Foundation on the social media handles and all of those different things. It's at NFF. It'll pop up on you. National Football Foundation. You can catch me on King of the Mammals, by the way, or LaVar Arrington on the X. Make sure y'all stay tuned in. We'll have another great episode coming your way. Till next time, we'll talk to you. National Football Foundation. Good in the game. We'll check you out.